brother-in-law, Al, brought us all down to a hangar that was nearby to see his four-seater Cessna. And the kids pulled the plane out of the hangar and they climbed in. He took them for like a 20-minute spin around the area. And then I've always enjoyed flying. So when he came back down, I got in. Fortunately, my kids opted to hang out with their older cousin, who was in college at that time, and did not come back up with me because we weren't up more than 5 minutes when all of a sudden there was a clunk. And we were at about 2,000 feet and the propeller froze in front of us. And as you can imagine, you know, it's a four-seater, so I was in the co-pilot seat. And I don't know if you've ever been in a small plane.
I have been.
Okay, so the propeller is pretty much right there. So when it freezes like that, it's pretty terrifying. You know? And honestly, if every hair on my head had been standing straight up like a cartoon character, it wouldn't have surprised me. So when that happened, we weren't near any landing strip. And it was around rush hour. So landing on a road, which you sometimes hear planes doing, was not an option because it was packed. Al, I have to give him a lot of credit because he's really the reason that we're both still here. But he found a clearing, and he actually, as a plane, like people are like, oh, didn't you just glide down? I'm like, no, because when you lose speed and you lose momentum, the plane starts to go down much steeper. And as that happened, he actually had to put us into more of a nosedive because the clearing that he found, he was afraid that if he continued on that path, he would overshoot it.
Oh, right.
So I remember coming terribly close to the tops of trees and high power lines and being really worried that we were going to hit them and cartwheel. But we got over them and we came down into this field, but the field had just been excavated for construction. So I believe there's a shopping center there right now, and it had recently rained. So when we hit, the plane, the wheels didn't roll on the ground. They sank in the mud, and we literally came to a full stop at 50 feet.
Oof.
And what happened is that because we hit so hard, I actually had a vertebrae in the middle of my back that burst. And if you looked at the x-rays or whatever, even to a layperson, you'd see it looked like somebody had taken a black magic marker and just put a line through there. But I was very fortunate because when I hit, the bone chips came out and came within millimeters of my spinal cord.
Wow.
So that obviously would have been insult to injury.
Right.
So when we came to a full stop, the plane was totaled and it was leaning to the side, and I happened to be on the downhill side. And I was in horrendous pain, as you could imagine. And I couldn't stand the thought of sitting in a chair. I didn't think, oh, and actually, let me even back up a little bit. But when you're going down in a plane, it's a very weird sensation. You don't really feel like you're going down. It feels like the ground is coming up at you.
Oh, okay.
It's very hard to explain, but I've heard this from other people that I interviewed for the book. And as we were going down, you know, people are like, what went through your mind? And I didn't, it's not like my life flashed before my eyes. It's not like I was thinking about my kids. Once the terror kind of faded away, which happened pretty quick, I became almost like surreally calm. And it was like, it was almost detached curiosity. I'm watching the ground coming up at me. And I remember thinking, oh, well, I guess I get to find out whether there really is a God. Maybe I'll see a sign like a flash of light, you know, and that's, again, probably from watching too much television or seeing the movies. But so when I did crash and I was and I pushed the door open and I fell in the mud and I obviously couldn't move.
Right.
But as I was sitting there kind of gasping and like tamping down the pain, almost like Lamaze breathing, I was elated. Like I couldn't believe that I was alive. It was beyond, because as we were going down, to be quite honest, there was no doubt in my mind that I was about to die.
What led to kind of hunting for other people to write the book?
I found a Facebook group. It's a private Facebook group of just plane crash survivors, of which there are now over 80 of us.
Wow.
On
In the U.S.?
In English-speaking countries.
Okay.
Canada, the U.S., New Zealand, we have a few. I don't recall any other countries in those.
Okay.
Started doing some preliminary interviews just because I felt like this was something that people are always interested in. Because when you say you're in a plane crash, people always want to hear what happened.
Exactly.
So I did some preliminary interviews, and I really felt like there was something there. But then I had a major health setback, and I think I explained to you I had a stroke 3 years ago. So obviously this project was put on hold. About a year and a half ago, Lindy Phillip, who is the co-author of the book, she approached me. She's the one who started the Facebook group. She survived a crash in Vancouver, outside of Vancouver. And she said, you still interested in doing this? She's not a writer, but I did the writing, and she helped me with the research, with the interviews, collecting photographs, kind of all the behind the scenes stuff that needs to happen to make a book. So we did this. We got most of the interviews were people from the Facebook group. There's a couple of others in here. They weren't. Most namely, my father was in a plane crash about a few years before mine. And then after mine, my brother was in a plane crash. And I'll even add to that, my mother, her stepfather, died in a Pan Am crash over Brazil in the 50s. So we have quite the family legacy.
Yes, you do.
I can't figure out if we're the safest people to fly with, or if they need to put like a public service announcement anytime that we ever get on a plane. I just really haven't decided yet.
Wow.
So, and then there's also a doctor who's a surgeon at UVA Medical Center that I'd read about somewhere else, and I approached him and he agreed. He's interesting too because his plane went on fire. So he's badly burned, and he actually lost all the tips of his fingers and learned how to do surgery with,
the nubs.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's some pretty amazing people
Yeah.
that I was able to talk to and get to know through writing this book.
Yeah. So did you find writing the book therapeutic?
I did. It wasn't easy. I will have to admit. I mean, when I was doing the interviews with some of the other people and learning more about what happened to them, their experiences sometimes made mine look like a walk in the park.
Wow.
There are people in here who survived, like, for example, American Airlines. There was a crash in Little Rock. It was horrible, and there's a woman who I interviewed, and I mean, some of the things that she had to go through just to even escape the plane that was lighting on fire were horrible. A lot of people died, including a lot of children. There's also another person that's in here, which was really wonderful for us. He joined the Facebook group right about when we were trying to decide. Mark Frank, and he was a crew member for the Leonard Skinner Band.
Oh, yeah.
Where the plane went down in the mid-'70s, and he obviously survived that. So when he agreed to be interviewed, to me that was like, that's my hook.
Yeah.
To have.
Exactly.
So it's been therapeutic, but I have to say too, when I was doing these interviews, sometimes, or doing the writing, sometimes I had to put it aside for a few days because it really.
It was heavy.
Like to make it meaningful to somebody else, you have to try to relive it, and you
Right.
have to try to put that down into words. And I would break out in a full body sweat. And even on the other side, the people that I interviewed, there's one woman, I think she lives in Texas, but she was in a small plane crash in Colorado that killed her uncle and her cousin, right in front of her. And it was a horrible, horrible situation. And it took her days to we had to do the interview in pieces, and it would take her days to kind of recover
Right.
from that. And then I think her crash was 10 years ago. So, even Mark, the Leonard Skinner person, he said that he would have nightmares for days after our conversations. And, there's a part of me that felt guilty.
Right. Right.
But they wanted to do it. Like, they felt that this was part of their therapy or recovery, too.
Right. Right.
Kind of fell apart a little bit. Lindy, I had actually never met her when this started. So I met her about halfway through the project when she came to New York City with some girlfriends. The woman who's in Arkansas, Lisa Rowe, she came to New York City when we were supposed to have the party that fell through because she was like, I've never been to New York.
Okay.
So we had a little mini one.
Right. We're out of time.
Are we already?
Already. And,
Okay.
I have to have you back because one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is how this Bracing for Impact you know, the way you title your book, but really how it impacted you personally. And we don't have time to talk about that.
Okay.
Would you be willing to
Of
come
course.
back? That'll be great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terrific. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for watching New Beginnings with Karen Delk. And I want to thank Robin Holleran, who is author of Bracing for Impact, who joined us. Her book is available on Amazon and audible.com. Thank you.